Welcome back to the deep dive. We are really glad you're here. So today, we need to cleanse the palate a little bit.
That is a very polite way of saying we need to stop shouting about the robot apocalypse for 5 minutes.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about the usual stack of articles we get on artificial intelligence. It's always one of two extremes.
Always.
It's either AI is a tsunami that will wash away the economy and take your job, or is...
Here's how to 10x your productivity and work 4 hours a week from a beach in Bali.
Exactly. It's just so loud and fast, and honestly, for most of us, it's just overwhelming noise.
It is exhausting, and it frames the technology purely in terms of volume.
Yeah.
Doing more things or destroying more things in less time. It's all about scale.
Exactly. But today, we're pivoting. We have a
Oh.
source that's, well, it's quiet. It's almost microscopic.
Yeah.
It's a piece titled Excerpts from a Went, which is pasted text. And let me tell you, this is not a white paper.
No, it's a fascinating choice. It isn't a tech review. It reads more like a diary entry or maybe even prose poetry. It's this first-person account of a writer, someone who lives by their words, just observing their own workflow after introducing a tiny bit of AI.
And the central mystery we're unpacking today, it isn't about output. We aren't asking, did they write more books or did they make more money?
Right.
We're asking, what happens to the human when you entrust just a small part of your cognition to a machine? And I don't mean saving 45 minutes on a spreadsheet. I mean, what happens to the texture of time inside your head?
And the author sets the stakes immediately, and they're surprisingly low, which is kind of refreshing.
Yeah.
I do not think I have changed the way I write.
Okay, so the core product is the same. The creativity, the style, that's all intact.
Exactly. But then they drop this anchor, and yet it feels as if the position from which I am writing has shifted slightly.
The position from which I'm writing, that's the hook for me. It's spatial. It implies the writer has physically moved in relation to their work.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to map that shift. Because on the surface, the author claims nothing dramatic happened.
Right. On the surface, it's mundane. I mean, they walk us through their routine, and it sounds like anyone's Tuesday. The structure of my day is almost the same as before. I wake up. I work. I think.
Which is actually kind of reassuring. No sci-fi dystopia, no sudden utopia, just waking up and working.
But to understand why this shift matters, we have to look at the before state. The author paints this picture of modern work that I think will feel uncomfortably familiar to a lot of you.
I think so.
They describe the old way of working not as creativity or labor, but as a sequence of processing.
A sequence of processing that feels so clinical.
It's mechanical,
Yeah.
and it's relentless. The text lists it out. One decision, one message, one task, then the next. It's just this linear, unbroken chain.
Oh, we all know that feeling. It's the assembly line of the knowledge worker. You send the email, you close the tab, a notification dings, you open the next doc. It's purely reactive.
You're not choosing what to do, the work is choosing you. Precisely. And the author captures the emotional reality of that state with a phrase that really stuck with me. They say, there was always something waiting, something unfinished, something pushing from behind.
Something pushing from behind. That is visceral. It's not just that you have a to-do list, it's that the list is hunting you.
That's the psychological weight of the sequence. And when you feel that push, your cognitive horizon just narrows right down.
You get tunnel vision.
Totally. The author admits, I was focused on completing what needed to be completed, finishing what had to be finished. Value is defined solely by completion.
You're not steering the ship, you're just swabbing the deck as fast as you can because the waves keep coming.
And here's the cost. This is the crucial insight from the before state. Because of that momentum, that constant forward push, the author writes, there was not much room to turn questions toward myself.
Okay, let's pause on that. That's a huge statement. Not much room to turn questions toward myself. That is the deficit. That's what gets sacrificed on the altar of productivity.
You just can't do it. Reflection requires a break in momentum. If you stop to ask, why am I doing this? Well, the thing pushing from behind just crashes right into you.
So you keep moving.
You keep moving. You're processing the world, but you aren't processing your relationship to the world.
That makes perfect sense. If you're running a sprint, you can't stop to tie your shoe. You just run. So the baseline is high pressure, linear processing, zero introspection. It's a survival state.
Correct. And then the intervention happens. The author brings in the AI.
But I love how they describe this. It's so anticlimactic. They say something like, at some point, I decided to entrust a small part of my work to AI.
Right.
Not everything, just a portion.
And that word entrust is interesting. It's a transfer of responsibility, not just using a tool.
Yeah.
But you're right. They manage expectations so aggressively, they say, it did not change my life.
It did not suddenly create empty hours.
Nothing dramatic happened.
Which contradicts every single marketing pitch we've seen for the last 2 years. We're conditioned to expect a revolution.
We are. I use this tool, and now I run a Fortune 500 company from a hammock.
Right, and this source is saying, no, that's not real. The work is still the work. The day is still the day.
You still have to pay the bills?
But something did happen, even if it wasn't a fireworks show.
Yes, they're right. But a small part of the work left my hands.
Left my hands. We're back to that physical language. The load didn't disappear, it still had to be done. But the point of contact changed. It wasn't in their hands anymore.
And that removal, that tiny absence of effort, it created a new phenomenon in their day. The author calls them small intervals.
Now, this is where we have to be really precise because the text is very specific about what an interval is and, more importantly, what it is not.
Right. This is the core concept of the piece. The author writes, not free time, not leisure.
Which is counterintuitive. I mean, usually the equation is efficiency equals time saved, and time saved equals leisure.
Sure.
If the AI writes the email draft, I should get to go get a coffee, right? That's the deal.
Yeah, exactly. But the author says no. These intervals aren't long enough for that. They aren't vacations. They're not even really breaks.
So what are they?
They define it as something like a pause, a slight delay before the next movement.
A slight delay. It sounds like a glitch. Or just taking a breath.
Think about that sequence of processing again. Task A leads to task B, leads to task C. There's momentum.
Okay.
What the AI does, by taking that small part of the work, it severs the link for a second. It breaks the momentum.
So the thing pushing from behind stops pushing?
For a heartbeat, yes. The pressure lifts because the baton has been passed to the machine.
Yeah.
You're still at your desk, you're still working, but you aren't acting, you're waiting.
It's like when you're cooking and you put something in the oven, you can't leave the kitchen, you have to watch it, but you also can't do anything to it. You're just sort of suspended.
That is a perfect analogy. You are present, but inactive.
Yeah.
And in that waiting, that's where the shift happens.
So nature abhors a vacuum, right? If the pushing stops, something has to fill that space.
And in that silence, the author says, something returns. Within that pause, a question returns.
The questions. And these aren't just any questions, they actually quote them.
They do.
What am I thinking right now, and where is this judgment coming from?
Where is this judgment coming from? I mean, that is a massive question. It's a heavy metacognitive question.
It really is. It's not, is this email polite? It's, why am I phrasing it this way? What's the underlying assumption here?
And notice the nature of these questions. My expert side finds this really distinct from what we usually call strategy.
How so?
In a business context, if you have downtime, you're supposed to think strategically. How do I optimize Q3? What's the 5-year plan?
Right, productive thinking. How do I crush the next goal? It's still forward momentum.
Exactly, it's still part of the push. But the author explicitly states, these are not strategic questions. They are not about productivity.
So how do they characterize them? If they're not productive, what are they?
They say. They are quieter than that. They simply appear.
Quieter than that. I love that phrasing. It suggests that these questions were always there, underneath the noise of the processing, but we just couldn't hear them. The machinery was too loud.
And that connects perfectly back to the before state. Remember, before, there was not much room to turn questions toward myself.
Right.
Now, because of this slight delay, this interval the AI created, that room has opened up.
This is the shift in position they talked about at the start, isn't it?
It is. The position has shifted from being purely a generator, someone who just outputs, to being an observer of their own output.
So the AI didn't do the thinking for them, it just cleared enough brush for them to see their own thoughts.
That is a beautiful way to put it. We worry that AI will make us think less, right? That it'll atrophy our brains. But this source suggests the opposite. By offloading the processing, the rote stuff, we might actually be forced to confront the deeper, harder work of judgment.
And judgment is so much harder than processing.
Much harder. Processing is automatic. Reply to email. Fill cell B4. Judgment requires you to define value. Is this good? Is this true? Is this me?
I want to dig into that "is this me" part, because the question, where is this judgment coming from, that implies the writer is looking at their own bias, their own mood.
Yes. When you're just processing, you're on autopilot. You're reacting based on habit. But when you have that interval, that pause, you can catch yourself. You can say, wait, am I writing this because it's true or because I'm angry
Or am I rejecting this idea because it's bad or just because I'm tired?
Exactly. That is a level of self-awareness that most of us just don't have time for in the daily grind.
We don't have the room for it, as the author says.
We don't.
So we have this shift. We have these quiet questions appearing in the pauses. The big question now is this a good thing?
You'd think so, right? If I told you I found a tool that makes you more self-aware and philosophical, you'd buy it.
I'd subscribe to that app. I'd expect the author to be writing a blog post titled, "How AI Made Me a Better Human."
The zen of algorithms. Yeah. But here is where the source material gets really honest. The author doesn't sell it. In fact, they seem deeply ambivalent.
They do. They write, "I do not know whether this is a good change, and I am not sure if it should be called progress."
That hesitation is so important. Why wouldn't it be progress?
Hmm.
Well, maybe because those questions are uncomfortable. Maybe staring into the void of your own judgment is actually terrifying compared to the safety of just processing tasks.
That's a really good point. Being busy is a great numbing agent. If you're constantly pushing, you don't have to ask yourself if you're pushing in the right direction.
Exactly. The interval strips away that defense mechanism. You're left alone with your own mind for 5–10 seconds. For some people, that's liberation. For others, it's pure anxiety.
So the author just refuses to label it. They just call it reality.
Yes, they state, I only notice that there is now time in which I can direct a question toward myself. That's the only certainty. The capability now exists where it didn't before.
And how do they leave it?
The final line is just, for now, I am leaving it there.
Leaving it there, just sitting with the ambiguity.
It's a refusal to force a conclusion. And I think that's a very healthy, very mature place to be with this technology. We are so desperate to categorize AI as good or bad, savior or destroyer.
Right.
But maybe in the actual texture of daily life, it's just a shift, a change in the physics of the workday.
A change that allows for a different kind of internal conversation. I mean, what strikes me is how it flips the script on human in the loop.
Oh, how so?
Usually we think the human is there to correct the AI, to make sure it doesn't hallucinate or say something awful.
Right, we're the supervisor of the machine, the adult in the room.
But in this story, the AI is almost the supervisor of the human's time. The AI takes the baton and says, "Okay, human, you have 10 seconds. Look at yourself. Think."
That is a profound inversion. And it connects to what we consider valuable work. In the sequence of processing, value is output. Did you clear the image?
Did you finish the report?
But in the interval, value is defined by awareness. Do you understand why you wrote the report? Do you know who you were when you cleared the inbox?
It's ironic. We use these tools because we want to be faster, but this source suggests the real side effect might be that we become slower, or at least deeper.
Quieter.
Quieter, yeah. And maybe that's what scares us. We aren't used to the quiet.
If we stop looking for AI to give us leisure, which implies checking out, and start accepting these intervals as moments to check in, that changes the value proposition entirely.
It changes it from saving time to reclaiming consciousness.
I like that. Reclaiming the right to ask yourself what you're thinking. Because if you don't ask yourself that question, eventually the algorithm will answer it for you. The workflow will answer it for you.
That is a chilling thought. If you aren't using the interval to judge your own output, you're just becoming part of the processing sequence again, a biological cog.
Exactly. And that's why the shift in position matters. You have to stand in the position of the questioner. You have to occupy that space.
So let's bring this down to you listening right now. You're likely using these tools, or you're about to. You're looking for efficiency. You want to get home earlier.
You want the push from behind to stop.
Right. And the takeaway here isn't go automate everything and go to the beach. It's much more subtle. It's to pay attention to the texture of your day.
Ask yourself, when you hand a task off to an AI, to software, to a colleague, what do you do with the gap that creates?
Do you immediately fill it with another task? Do you pick up your phone and start scrolling?
Because if you do that, you're just maintaining the sequence of processing. You're replacing one noise with another.
You're killing the interval.
Exactly. So the challenge is, can you sit in that slight delay? Can you tolerate the quiet?
It's about catching that reflex, the reflex to be busy, the reflex to feel productive.
And just seeing if those quiet questions show up. What am I thinking right now? Where is this judgment coming from?
It might not feel like progress in the traditional sense. It won't show up on your quarterly review.
No. Spend 40 minutes contemplating the nature of judgment. HR won't love that.
But as our source says, it creates a time where you can direct a question toward yourself. And in a world that is constantly pushing from behind, that might be the most valuable thing you can possess.
It's a reclaiming of agency. even if it's just for a few seconds. It's a difference between being a machine and being a person.
For now, I am leaving it there.
And I think that's a perfect place for us to leave it, too. We don't need to decide today if AI is the savior of the creative class or the end of it. We just need to notice the shift.
Agreed. Observation is the first step. If you can feel the shift, you can navigate it.
And you can decide what to do with that pause.
But before we go, here's a thought to carry with you. We're always asking technology to give us answers. Generate text, generate images, generate solutions. But based on what we read today, what if the ultimate role of this technology isn't to give us answers, but to give us the silence we need to ask better questions?
The quiet questions.
The quiet ones. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.